Sup people, today I'll be talking about a game that is full of death and suffering, where you play as Sigourney Weaver. When Hellblade released back in 2017 I was somewhat intrigued by it, because of the things the game was called. Some called it one of the best games of that year, and others called it nothing but a boring pretentious game. So I wanted to take a look at it to know for sure. So when you open the game you see these two disclaimers. The first is saying that the game has themes of psychosis, and the second saying that you need to put on headphones for the intended experience. You're probably seeing where this is going. So when you start a new game, you're met with a woman talking in a very quiet voice, right next to your ear. And you see the main character, Senua, in a small log boat heading to a forest, and voices start to talk in your head. That's pretty much your psychosis voices. For the people that don't know what psychosis is, it's a mental illness that causes a person to hear voices and see hallucinations. Then Senua pushes the boat she was on, signaling that she has nothing to go back to. And I know this because the narrator says so, which I like because I don't really get these very quickly. Then after a long walk you get to your first combat encounter, and then the real journey starts. The game looks like what you expect. It looks nice, but not too nice. The thing about the visuals that impressed me are some of the effects and the artistic choices. The first area I went to was the Valravan area, which is filled with illusions. The impressive part for me was the effect of an illusion being removed. It actually amazed me quite a bit. Wall? No wall. Some areas have hallucinations and they are annoying. They flash in your face and are very disorienting. They sometimes look more like glitches than effects, but the best artistic choices in the game, how ghosts look. A ghost is not from this realm, and many different pieces of media portray that in different manners. But here it's pretty cool. So Hellblade is a game, obviously, and so the characters are a 3D model. And so when the game showed a ghost for the first time and it's a real person acting, and that is very amazing. It actually made for some pretty creepy moments. The voices in head thing is a nice gimmick at first, but easily becomes a huge annoyance while playing, because if you're bored or annoyed, the voices become stupid. And you might say that is the point. It's always someone whispering. No, saying things like, the door is open. You can fix it. Licking doorknobs is illegal in other planets. The voices help in fights, but that is just not worth it, for how much of a useless gimmick it is. The narrator always talks in a whispery voice. And the thing you need to know about whispery voices is that the mouth noises like the ones you hear from me right now become huge. So it's just someone talking really close to your ear in a whispery voice, like you're watching an ASMR video, and it's weird. The music. The music is mostly ambient noises and some horror themes, but nothing sticks out, cause most of the time other noises will fill the silence like screams and weird distorted noises, which sometimes are effective in setting a mood, but other times they're just not noticeable because they don't go with the mood the gameplay is setting. So from here on out I'll be talking more in depth about some areas, so if you're here for the verdict, I don't recommend this game. And for more on the verdict, skip to here. We're good? We're good. The first area serves as a good entrance towards the first main objective of the game, which is to kill Valravan, which is a creature from Danish culture, but here he's depicted as the god of illusion, and his area shows it. His puzzles require seeing through gate-looking things that would remove the illusions, and the puzzles are easy, which is a theme in the game. But what is good about it is the boss fight. Valravan is the best boss fight in the game, which is not a very difficult title to take. He has a good variety of attacks, and has different phases, and it's pretty fun to fight. And after killing him, seeing the area with no more illusions is a nice touch. The third area is full of the main puzzle type in the game, ruin searching. You have a few ruins you have to find in the world around you. So you line up a tree and a dead man and bam, a ruin. It does tell something about the main character, because it was actually one of the symptoms of psychosis, but later became a normal human behavior. Because seeing a dog in this plank of wood doesn't mean you hear voices telling you to sub to the channel, but now you do. But I remember in a recent video for Shami, he said that there are obvious meanings to these puzzles, but I don't notice any. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention in Norse rune class, so sorry. The special thing in this area though are sacrifice sites, where you focus on them and then everything goes up in flame. I actually died a few times because of this, by not knowing where to go and suffocating. And then the biggest disappointment in the game is Surt. Surt is the fire giant who will bring the end of the gods in Ragnarok. And here, he's just a big dude in flames. His boss fight is painfully easy and is just silly. He has like 2 attacks and is very meh. and killing doesn't change anything as much as with Valravan, so the area is quite lacking. After all of this is over, you lose your sword and get a new one through trials that all get you to new tests that range from meh to downright ass. The one that sticks out the most is the Darkness trial, cause you can't see shit. It tells you how Dillion is Senua's way out of the dark. But this is ass. You can't see shit. You have to avoid enemies that are generous in their kill range, and you move at a breakneck speed of an elderly woman after falling down a flight of stairs. I finished this area and got so bored doing it, I just said fuck it and stopped playing altogether. Then came back cause there's more of this game. And the Tower trial, which has a good idea, but it's executed very poorly. Like that poor bastard in the Green Mile. You find these masks that seem to show another world, and when focused on, seemingly travel in time, and it's sorta dumb, cause the only thing you do here is some normal ruin puzzles and that is it. Actually, this entire section adds little to the game in general, and feels like it's just a way to extend the game's time so that it's eligible for the $30 price, which still stands till this day. And not because the area is cheap, but in every other area it felt like there was something going on, but in this one it's like a Crash game hub world, so it's quite possibly the most boring part in the game. The scenes you see here could be in another location, and some of the areas could have been taken out of the game and nothing would have been lost. And some areas that had some interesting ideas could have been a lot longer with more refined ideas. After getting the sword, you get to the Sea of Corpses, my favorite tropical resort. And this place looks quite good, in the fucked up way. Hands reaching out to grab you like it's the second God of War game, and everything going crazy. It's a good spectacle, but this place carries one purpose. It's a fighting area. Enemies come out in batches, which makes sense since this area marks where this game becomes serious and shit. The next area is the one I died in the most. It's Grammar's castle, cave thing, and the whole ordeal with this asshole is that he stalks in the shadows and tries to fuck with your head. This area carries a big fake feeling of urgency, since there is no way for you to actually make light come out, and no skills required to press the run button, because at that point the game has to make each light spot an optimal distance away from you. But a very cheap scare is this. All of a sudden the lights go out and Senua turns around and it's like,
he's just standing there, menacingly!
And she just doesn't fucking run, and it gets nerve-wracking. It's cheap, but effective. And then Senua loses her boyfriend's head, which she needs to take him out of hell, and the voices talk to her like a dog owner seeing their dog shit on the carpet. And Senua has to descend to the monster's lair to get it back. And she fights the monster in a by the numbers boss fight. And then she gets back to the top and that is it. I won't talk about the few places afterwards cause they're either not worth it or have huge spoilers, which I'll save for the story section of the video. The combat is the thing, I guess. It's a normal hack and slash combat system with some things attached to it. And it's good, but sadly not the main focus of the game. So some parts feel lacking. The system is very mash heavy and it feels more simple than anything else. The enemies aren't really varied, and the ones there is are not amazing. They're all Viking type shit mixed with animal skulls, and it's not a bad look. And gameplay wise I don't have any things to say. But about the combat, it has normal attacks, heavy attacks and melee all together in the same box. And as I said, you mash until an enemy falls over and dies. And I've seen people call this either bad for being unimpressive or good for doing its job of not making you feel like a badass. And both sides, in my opinion, are not correct. Cause running in the Sea of Corpses towards an enemy and slashing at their ass into a light heavy light combo while slowing time screams badass to me. So my only gripe with it feels like the way to win is by mashing. And the game is easy. It's painfully easy. And thankfully so, cause after the first combat encounter the game tells you that if you die enough your progress will be lost. And I fucking hate this, cause there is no reason why you should do this. It gives an excuse for the low difficulty, yet it makes an area like the grammar area feel very frustrating. The story is, okay. It's not as half as good as people said, but I won't talk too in depth. The idea of the characters annoys me. So to start off with Senua herself. She's a 3-note character. She's either sad for herself, in agony or angry. She doesn't have any other emotion. She doesn't have as much an emotional spectrum, it's an emotional pie chart. Her psychosis thing does make for a pretty good character beat, but there are two problems with that. The first is she's not a normal person. She's a Norse warrior, so the idea of identifying with her is thrown out immediately. And since she only experiences 3 emotions, she becomes a character not even people with psychosis could identify with. And second, this might give some feelings as to what the story means, which I don't see as a good thing, because as a normal person this is confusing, because you don't know if any of this is real. And for a reviewer it might cause him to have a problem with writing a review. So as an example, the enemies morph to reality out of thin air, and when you die to grammar, Senua just flops on the ground howling the worst sound in the game, with no injuries, so you might say that the dog made her insane even more? I don't know. The rot could be her deteriorating brain, and the ending could mean that the quest was her way of coping with the loss of the only person that cared about her. So it's just too much uncertainty. The other characters all serve a singular purpose. Dillion, the boyfriend, is the initiative to go on the quest, and he feels like he's some hipster from the 21st century, and not some Norse warrior. Druth, who had a comically miserable life that had nothing good about it till he died, and Sinua's mom, who gets burned, I guess. So the verdict is, I don't get what this game's about. It feels overrated and it has unreasonably good reviews. And it's not about the game being mostly walking and some story stuff, because I loved What Remains of Edith Finch, and that game was mostly walking, but that game had a great story and one of the best ways of telling a story through gameplay. I highly recommend giving it a watch, but not so much buying it, because it's even less of a game than this is. So I don't recommend Hellblade Deer in the Headlights. So if you liked the video, subscribe. Goodbye.